Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over the new faction that came out last Friday of Eldrazhor, as well as a bunch of teams for it and just general strategy. So, Eldrazhor is a green-purple restriction delve that is associated to Zhul'kari. This does allow Zhul'kari to get to 16 star. It also makes getting to 10 star for an extra magic as well as 5 star for an extra magic a little bit easier to do, and definitely worth considering if you haven't already done so, as permanent magic is one of the best stats in the game. This is a little bit of annoying delve, mostly because of the troops that reside here, which also now reside in Zhul'kari. The most annoying thing here, oddly enough, as far as particularly Explore, is going to be this troop right here. This is going to slow you down quite a bit if you don't utilize a stun during the delve itself, and it can also end up slowing you down whenever you do Explore 12, or any Explore for that matter, now in Zhul'kari. So this thing is basically a Drake Rider. It has a 100% chance to summon something on death. In this case, it's Tome Spider. Overall, its summon is much better. However, this is still 100% summon, which means unless it's stunned, it will get a summon every single time. So this is going to be super annoying. One thing that does make this a little bit easier for the delve is in both the first and last battle where they reside. It is in the first slot, so if you have something that can stun first slot pretty easily, for example, like Titan set to have the stun whenever it gets hit by Skull or anything similar, will end up getting a stun, so you don't have to deal with it. However, it is highly advised to have one, as it will save you quite a bit of time delving through this delve. Anyways, other than that, as far as the delve layout itself, it is pretty straightforward. Reminds me a lot of Hall of Guardians, with a little bit of a twist in that you can go to the side rooms here before the middle. However, generally you're going to go for the first room, you go for your 5, and then you kind of go branch out from there to all the little legs. As far as guaranteed treasure rooms, only 2 of them are guaranteed. It is the one all the way to the top right here, as well as the one all the way at the bottom right here. The other 4 have a small chance of being it, however, they are not guaranteed. Other than that, it does have a pretty good straightforward path. If you're looking to use a rush method, you just simply have the one battle in the middle, and then, of course, the final. The main thing to really look forward to or watch out for in the final is, of course, the instant kill. Matron Valine does have a instant kill on it, and that can end up ruining your Deathless if you're going for a Deathless run, as well as just kill you out regardless of what you're doing. So that's one of the more bigger threats. The other thing is the stats effects off a Deep Elven Rogue. Also, I didn't even go over them, so let me go and bring that up. So, Deep Elven Rogue. This thing gets to eliminate a lot of attack. When you're using potion effects, this is a substantially high attack. You definitely have to be careful of the enemy whenever they try to do the same to you. One counter to this is, of course, to have it webbed off of a random web, so that barely does any attack reduction whatsoever. However, having a bit of an attack reduction fight is pretty important to make sure that they go down to essentially 0 attack, so you can then buff up, go and do your hits, and just disable them out with stats effects. It does get to inflict 3 random stats effects, and what's pretty noteworthy is since you do have curse with it as within an option of everything within the delve, you will be able to curse them and apply every single stats effect. Even though they have several immunities, you'll be able to ignore all those immunities while you have the curse on them. Other than that, it is also noteworthy that this thing has stealthy, so it will be the last thing alive generally, especially if it's further back in your team. And this is pretty beneficial, as you'll be able to kind of cheese it with random stats effects, most notably Death Mark. I got a lot of free Death Mark kills when we end up running the Pure faction for it, and it's definitely a good backup plan if you have pretty much nothing else on your team that can end up winning. You can end up cheesing it with Death Mark, Silence, and just keep them completely disabled if there's only one troop left, until the Death Mark just eventually gets RNG and ends up killing them. Other than that, Deep Huntsman, we kind of already mentioned. Main gimmick with this is it's 100% summon. However, it does have a lot of explosions. This would be viable if it actually had a mana start. Unfortunately, it has a 0% mana start. You could give it half off a beast or elf. However, you're probably not really going to be building around that with this. However, that is an option with those 50% starts. But overall, it's mostly going to be used whenever you want to use its 100% summon. A Tome Spider is not that bad. Can do 4 times skull damage with it. Overall, its ability is rather average, but being able to hit a 4 times skull if its 2 times multiplier combined with a Hunter's Mark that it has attached to the troop itself is not too bad of an option as a resummon. Other than that, we got Deep Magnus. This is probably one of the more useless troops from this place, mostly because he does basically half his magic plus 2, I believe it is, for his damage, which means he doesn't upscale that well. And then even if you're just doing him without upscaling, it's just such a low damage that it's barely going to do anything compared to other options. He does get to curse and web all enemies. This is somewhat beneficial as there aren't too many things that do this. However, it is super situational as to when you would really end up bringing this out. And for the delve itself, I would probably advise not even touching this. It also does have 25% spell reduction, but very rarely does that come into play. More so than not, just annoying and makes it so you don't end up killing the enemy on a given hit. And other than that, one of the easiest ways to probably cheese it, or I shouldn't say easiest, but if you really want to go luck-based and kind of run it like Crypt, we do have this thing. It has a 10% chance to instant kill, and this is boosted by an additional 4% for every curse and web on the opposing team. It also has an interesting final trait that might be viable in some teams going forward. Very rarely, though, but it does have a curse web. A random enemy every single time it takes an extra turn. This can be pretty beneficial, as this would allow you to curse web the entire enemy team, even if they have immunity to such, because the curse will break through it and then you'll be able to web. One of the main gimmicks with web, of course, is that you are zeroed out on magic for the duration of the web. This is obviously very beneficial on any kind of troop that is primarily based on magic that needs it for its cast, mostly for a very high amount of damage. Keep in mind, when something is webbed, it will still do every other aspect of its ability. So while this might do almost 0 damage, only do 4 damage while it's webbed, it would still have the 10% chance to kill based on the boost ratio increase. So it still keeps all of its other aspects. So web is only good against some options. However, can be good. Most notable spot to use it within this stealth is the thing that steals attack. If you end up getting it to 0 magic, it will barely steal any attack whatsoever. So that's generally the main purpose for web, I would say, in the context of the stealth. Whereas in other situations, you mostly do it to make full AoE damage, and things that can hit all enemies and similar kind of burst damage do very, very little. Anything that doesn't really have like follow-ups options to their ability tends to be pretty good as a web counter. But anyways, also you can't gain or lose magic during the duration of a web. That's not applicable for the stealth, however, there are instances where that can be useful outside of the delve itself. Anyways, while we're in this page, let's go get into teams. So, first things off, this is what I ran for a good majority of the time. Also, keep in mind, we had Green Tower of Doom this week, and every single team that you use for Green Tower of Doom is applicable for this delve. So you can use it because of the green-purple restriction. And also keep in mind, even though it is a green-purple restriction, you are not restricted on weapons, so you are allowed to use any weapon in the game regardless of its color when it comes to delves, as well as Tower of Doom. But anyways, as far as our options, of course, it's green, purple, and any color weapon. For this first team, we ran a Shield of Urskia Rowan team for pretty much the entire time. We ended up switching a little bit here and there, but ultimately it's what we used for the beginning and the end. You just use Urskia Shield into Rowan. Thrall gives you a bunch of mana off of all the gem destroys it does, and Leprechaun does a bunch of explosions. This is also a super cheap team to build. Urskia Shield is obtained from 250 wins on Sentinel Hero class, obtained from Urskia. Thrall's a common. Rowan is free from Forest of Thorns when you complete out the questline. And Leprechaun is an ultra rare, and oddly enough, probably the hardest thing to get on this team, even though it's pretty easy to get. And you basically just cast the Leprechaun, cast your Thrall, keep spamming Urskia Shield into Rowan to boost its armor, and then you just win. Pretty noteworthy to use Titan with this, or anything similar. You can use Sentinel if you really need the extra tankiness, so Titan is a bit quicker. And of course, one of the most useful traits on it, oddly enough, other than its barrier every brown, which it gets at 40, is of course the stun. This is very important to make sure that you end up getting a stun off onto the first slot. Whenever it gets hit by Skull, it will stun. Urskia Shield also applies a stun if you have it maxed to the first slot. However, just off your Titan alone is normally enough. Other than that, you can run a Skull spam option. Mang Thrall, Keeper of Souls, Leprechaun. Pretty good. You can replace Keeper of Souls with any Skull spammer you want, as long as it's obviously purple or green with its color. And you can just run this, throw down a Mang, do the same mana generation loop with Thrall and Leprechaun, and just throw down a Mang in order to get your attack buff. Mang gets attack based on how much armor you tier. This obviously upscales very well, and then you just spam them with skulls, with whatever skull spam option you wish to use, and just go from there. Other than that, there are two different variants of Pure Faction. One uses potions, one uses without potions, so theoretically you could use either for either. However, no potion one would of course be much better when doing it without potions. So for the potion one, and what I actually ultimately ended up getting the win with, was double Deep Huntsman as well as double Deep Elven Guard. This gives you a lot of tank ability, given that you have basically 4 troops as your first 2 slots, given that you have a 100% chance to resummon. The only instance this wouldn't happen is if Deep Elven Guard Rogue gets a stun on you. However, that is very rare, and during that duration you just try not to die, of course. But anyways, it gets to explode a bunch, has that resummon. And you don't really cast it too much. You're mostly just using it for its tank ability. Wait till it dies, and then you have a Tome Spider, which you then can cast, and it does a lot of damage. Ideally, what you want your team to be by the final battle is a Tome Spider, followed by Deep Huntsman, followed by double Deep Elven Rogue. It's actually one of the reasons why we're not using a minus red banner, even though the banner for the Delve, I believe, is a +2 green, +1 purple. Well, for one, we don't use purple on this team. But the other reason why we don't use something like that is we actually don't want a minus red. We don't want to go get the Tome Spider to be minus, so very important that you set your color accordingly, and Tome Spider is a brown-red. So with no potion, you can end up cheesing it with Matron, similar to how you do with Crypt, but a little bit of a different method. You can end up using this for instant kill. I found this to be very inconsistent, though we almost did get it first try using a very heavy Matron team. However, its percent chance to kill is even lower than what you have for the Crypt, and you need a lot of extra turns to actually end up making it work overall. But as far as the team, Deep Huntsman is here for casting, and if you need a backup, you will get the Tome Spider. The Elven Rogue is mostly to attack reduce in order to go and get them down so they don't do a billion damage to you. However, it can also be to try to cheese things with Death Mark kills, so you can also chip them down that way. And a Double Matron is mostly to go place a bunch of webs, so you'll ideally not have to deal with attack reduction as well as their other effects. And of course, to also have the instant kill, which is the primary way that you actually win all these battles, is to go for these instant kills, hope they land, and then just slowly chip down the team by doing that. You can also focus the actual damage. However, without potion effects, that damage is going to be very, very, very low. So you're going to be depending almost entirely on the Death Mark of Deep Elven Guard combined with the instant kill of Matron. And that is pretty much this delve. We also got a weapon with it, but it's pretty irrelevant, but I might as well still end up mentioning it. I believe it's actually under the Zhul'kari category, since of course it is associated to Zhul'kari. And it is right over here. It is the, actually I didn't even upgrade it yet, but it's pretty useless. It's the Eldrazhor wand. It deals damage to an enemy. If they are cursed, it creates 8 green gems, and if they are webbed, it creates 8 purple gems. This is pretty bad because even at its best, it's only creating an 8/8, and they can overlap with each other, which is very annoying. Overall, pretty bad right there, and you'd have a much better time using any of these other weapons that end up creating 2 of a different color boost ratio based on a typing. All of those will pretty much be better than this wand. As far as upgrades, it ends up gaining a for life when it casts, 5 scatter damage, and enchant to itself, and give all green allies 2 mana. So nothing really too special, but we'll go max it. If nothing else, it's another weapon to have for your upgrading purposes for Zhul'kari. And other than that, as far as the pet that ended up coming in, we ended up getting this little spider thing. Where's Zhul'kari? Should be all the way at the bottom here. But this was the new pet that we ended up getting from it as well, the Itsy Bitsy Drider. While it's not required to have 2 pets maxed yet, it will be once we get one more Zhul'kari troop, so we're potentially considering maxing it out. You get this pet if you get to 2,000, which doesn't require any amount of purification or a small amount, and either or you want to do it, however you want to do it. However, in order to get it maxed, it does require a 2,500 maxed out faction with the 500 pure faction. It doesn't have any kind of effect other than, just the Eldrazhor, a little bit of bonus. This can help, obviously, a little bit for the pure faction. However, it's going to make very little difference, especially since most of your damage is based on instant kills and Death Mark for the most part, other than your spider up front, and it overall doesn't really make too big of an impact. However, it can be a little bit helpful if you get the 2,000 renown prior to doing that and get a 2.25 upgrade, or 2.5 if you did a higher pure faction prior to the 500 pure faction. But anyways, guys, that'll wrap it up for the Eldrazhor faction. Overall, pretty annoying. Probably one of the most annoying factions so far. I think it actually took us the most amount of time, though I'm not sure if I would say it's the absolute most annoying, but it's pretty high up there. It's definitely not a enjoyable one for the most part. Pretty frustrating, but it wasn't too bad, I guess. If nothing else, we do have a web curse option. Isn't really used too often. I do feel like Web Spinner generally, if you want to go get Arachne Weaver, if you want to go get a web option, is normally the way to go. And if you want a curse option, there's of course the new troop that ended up coming in through the most recent campaign. So you can end up using that. You can end up using Mirage Queen. You have a couple options, so you don't necessarily need to use a troop that has both of them together. There's also very few situations where you would specifically need both a curse and a web in a given battle, to the point that overall, nothing really too interesting from this. Similar to the Mythic that came out last Friday and is still available for, of course, about the next week or so until Friday reset. They're both kind of useless overall, which we kind of knew going forward or before they came out, but after testing and messing around with it, they really are pretty bad. But we'll just have to wait till next faction. Hopefully we'll get something good, and we're almost getting there as far as completing out every faction in the game. We only have a small handful left. If we go in our profile right now, I believe it's at 25, right? Or 24. So we only have 10 more factions coming into the game. We'll probably have some kind of new format after that, but yeah, 10 more factions to go until they are all gone. And also 60,000 renown does give an extra stat. I believe it was an extra HP, if I'm not mistaken. It was either HP or armor, I forget which. But we did get an extra stat if you have literally every faction maxed, which I know is very few people. But technically, it did end up coming out with this faction as well. But anyways, guys, if you have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below, and I'll make sure to get around to them. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll have all the preview for next week tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye, everyone, and thank you all so much for watching.